Let's be honest, we all have purchases that we regret. Maybe it's the camera that's collected more dust than memories, maybe it's the sporting gear that was supposed to kickstart a fitness journey, or maybe it's that subscription you already meant to cancel 2 years ago but keep forgetting about. We live in an era of just buying things, of increasing consumerism, where we constantly get targeted by marketing teams and salespeople promising that this next purchase will solve all our problems. But after a while, you look around and realize that you're surrounded by stuff that you don't really care about, stuff that you don't even like that much, stuff that kinda sucks. But every once in a while, if you're lucky, you find an object that just fits, something that is just solid, thoughtful, useful, and it quietly makes your life a bit better every single day. So here's a list, not of things I think you need, but things that don't suck, at least in my opinion. These are the kinds of things that I reach for time and time again because they work and they work well. So maybe they can do the same for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, a simple analog watch. Let's start with something easy. A watch that tells the time and nothing else. I don't think a watch necessarily needs to come preloaded with a heart rate monitor or a step counter or just a bunch of unwanted notifications. And this isn't me necessarily trying to hate on smartwatches. I think there is a lot of utility in them, but I don't think all of us necessarily make use of that utility. And if anything, I think it just sort of opens up this avenue for added distractions throughout the day. Now, when it comes to smartwatches specifically, they track your sleep, your workouts, your stress levels. You can get a lot out of them, but I'm a bit unconvinced that most of us really need another screen begging for our attention. Personally, I've never looked at my phone and thought, you know what would make this better for my mental health? If it was constantly strapped to my wrist. Personally, my daily driver is the Timex Weekender, which is affordable, easy to read, and charming in that old school, not trying too hard way. It's the kind of watch that goes with jeans, chinos, or even joggers if you're pushing it, but more importantly, it just does what it's supposed to. It's extremely simple, and I appreciate that. Number 2, literally any camera. Now, hear me out. You don't need the fanciest new camera, you don't need a $3,000 lens, and you don't even need to be a content creator or necessarily have somewhere where you're going to post these photos. I think just the act of having a camera is a bit of a practice in mindfulness. It's the kind of thing that forces you to focus in on certain moments in your life. It's a sort of a nice thing to carry around because when you notice certain moments or you want to capture certain memories, it allows you to do so in a bit of a more unique way. Having a camera, a real physical camera, has this strange way of pulling you into moments and stopping time. It's an item that forces you to look and to pay attention to things when you're out taking photos. When I carry a camera, I notice more. I see light differently. I pay attention to moments I'd normally scroll past. It doesn't even matter if these photos are good. It took a long time for mine to even become decent. But what matters is the act of looking. And you don't need to overthink it. Start with a simple point and shoot, or borrow your cousin's old Canon camera, or even just go out and buy an old used secondhand digital camera. The important thing is just to capture things. It gives you an excuse to look at the world as though it's worth capturing. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Sometimes you just need to look at something through the right lens to appreciate it a little bit more, even if that thing is just your day-to-day life. And I think a camera lens might just do the trick. Plus, a camera might end up changing your life in very unexpected ways, such as enabling you to turn that camera on yourself and start sharing your thoughts and ideas with the world. 12 months ago, this YouTube channel had 272 subscribers, a number which has astoundingly since turned into over 27,000. So on the one hand, I would like to thank all of you for joining me in my little corner of the internet. I really appreciate it. But on the other, I also just want to motivate you. If YouTube or any other kind of content creation has always been on your mind, don't get in your own way. Press record, try it out, and see what happens, because you might just end up surprising yourself. Number 3, a good mouse and keyboard. So in preparation for this video, I spent a few weeks kind of just keeping track of the things that I used every single day, just to get a feel for what am I actually getting use out of on a day-to-day basis? And what I very quickly realized is that I spent an astounding amount of time right here at my desk, typing away and clicking away things on my computer. Whether that be working on videos, gaming, doing design work, or even just finding a good YouTube video to watch, chances are you also probably spend a huge chunk of your life at a desk with your hands on a keyboard and mouse. We don't always think about these everyday items, but because we use them so frequently and because we use them so much, even a small upgrade can lead to a lot of extra enjoyment and use from these items. And so nowadays, especially when it comes to my keyboard and mouse, I've kind of settled on a vertical mouse and a very unique mechanical keyboard, but more on the latter in a second. When it comes to the mouse, I never really considered that a poorly made or poorly shaped mouse could be harmful until a friend of mine who worked a desk job started developing carpal tunnel syndrome in her right wrist. She struggled for a while, but eventually switched over to a vertical mouse, which ended up making her day-to-day much more comfortable, and the whole thing prompted me to switch over as well. While it was initially a bit of an adjustment after getting used to it, I don't think I'll ever go back. And speaking of never going back, I recently switched over to a pretty awesome mechanical keyboard, which gave me the mind-blowing realization that even something like typing can be fun. This particular keyboard is called the EvoWorks Evo 80 keyboard, which kindly got sent to me by a company called Milktooth. They're a company focused on keyboard switches and keycaps for mechanical keyboards with a major emphasis on variety and quality. What caught my interest about them was their attention to detail and their obvious interest in what they're actually doing, even having an accompanying YouTube channel all about keyboard switches, which can apparently range all the way from creamy to thocky to clacky. I never really knew all that much about mechanical keyboards and key switches, but there's a very real satisfaction from typing on a keyboard that looks this good and sounds this satisfying. I'm going to leave a link to them down below, partly because they sent me this awesome keyboard, but mainly because I just think there's a lot of value in supporting people who are actually passionate about what they are doing and who go to the extra mile to try and provide something of actual quality. Plus, they try and make it fun along the way, which is something that I really respect. So, link down below. 4. Shoes you actually like. Let's be honest, shoes are one of the few things that you literally use every single day, but despite that, most of us just kind of tolerate them. They kind of hurt, they kind of squeak, or they kind of look like we just kicked a sand pile over. But my philosophy is that when it comes to something that you are going to use every single day, you might as well like that thing. Personally, I've been loving a pair of On Clouds as my everyday go-tos. For me, they're quite comfy, they're lightweight, and they don't really scream for attention, but they feel very nice. And for sports, I've got 2 pairs of Nikes that work well for the court while playing tennis, and the road less traveled when going for trail runs. But the brand doesn't really matter. It's more so just about finding shoes that you actually like. Shoes that make you feel a little bit faster or a little bit more light on your feet, or maybe even just give you a little bit more confidence. You should have shoes that you actually want to wear. Ideally, I don't really want to fuss too much about shoes. I just want to put them on and go out. But a bad pair of shoes can become quite a headache, especially on a day-to-day basis. It can make the simple act of walking uncomfortable. And I feel like a good pair of shoes do more than just protect your feet. They nudge you into actually going outside a little bit more, to exploring, to taking the long route home, because by the end of the day, your feet aren't hurting the whole time. And not to go on too much of a rant when it comes to shoes, but like I said, they are everyday items. They literally go wherever you go. So you might as well get a pair that you enjoy so that you can enjoy the journey a little bit more. Number 5. Personal artifacts. Okay, so the last type of life accessory probably has the least utility. It doesn't charge anything, it doesn't track your steps, it doesn't make your room look any cleaner, but I would argue that these items are some of the most important items that you own. Because every now and then you will come across an object that makes no logical sense to keep, and yet you can't imagine parting with it. It's a personal artifact, something that's part of your personal history. Maybe it's an old Yu-Gi-Oh card that reminds reminds you of when you were a kid. You haven't played the game in years, but holding it still feels weirdly empowering, like a little reminder of the version of you once believed you were unstoppable because you had Dark Magician or Red Eyes Black Dragon in your deck. And honestly, that version of you wasn't wrong. Or maybe it's a physical photo, the kind you actually had to go and have printed, not one of the 40,000 that live in your phone's camera roll, never to be seen again. But maybe one of a dozen that made it into a photo frame or onto a pin board, a moment that stuck, a moment that even when you were taking that picture, you didn't realize was going to stand the test of time. And then there's the stuff that defy all explanation. For example, I have a golden skull on my side table. It doesn't store anything, it's not a Bluetooth speaker, and it serves no functional purpose whatsoever. But it's a gift from a good friend, and it has stayed with me through a lot. When I look at it, it's a reminder for me not to be so scared, to not take life or myself too seriously. Also, it just looks cool, and I think that counts. These are things that make your life feel like your life. They're not necessarily practical, they don't optimize your day-to-day routine in any way, but they still hold value. They are quiet reminders of the stories that you carry, and in a world that's constantly trying to get you to spend your time and money on the latest and greatest things, sometimes the most value comes from things that you've already had for years. So yeah, keep the weird stuff, display it proudly. It matters more than you think. And with all that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.